Okay. Good evening, everyone. I call the meeting to order. Councillor Haji has sent his regrets, and Councillor Swart is online. So we move along to acknowledgement statement, and that's you, Councillor Rang. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
The Municipality of Clarington is situated within the traditional and treaty territory excuse me, of the Mississaugas and Chippewa of the Anishinaabe, today known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. And our work on these lands acknowledges their resilience and their long-standing contributions to the area now known as the Municipality of Clarington.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Again, I don't see any online. I don't see. So there being none, move along to announcements, beginning with Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to leave one for Councillor Wu. This is one in hindsight, a party that we are at on the weekend. But this Saturday, there is the Big Drum social event that is at the Rickard Complex from 11 to 3. There will be vendors, dancers, and of course drums. It is a really neat ceremony. And as you learn about the big drum, the ceremony, the reason for everything behind it, what an amazing piece of Indigenous, I'm going to say, history, folklore, and tradition. So encourage everyone to go. They did one a couple of years ago down at Rotary Park. Really, really interesting. And with that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Rang.
Thank you, Chair. I have two today, and the first one is a little bit close to home, literally for me. Many of us work from home and are entrepreneurs out of our home, and it can be very difficult to network with other folks who are doing the same kind of work. And I know in Clarington there are tons of us who have taken advantage of being online to be able to work from home full-time. The Clarington Board of Trade recognizes this, and they are having a home-based business roundtable discussion on Thursday, January 23rd at Seasons, which is Clarington Retirement Residence. It's a chance to collaborate and talk and see how CBOT can assist you in elevating your business profile in the community, and that's at 10 a.m. on January 23rd. And for you of a Scottish persuasion, or even if you're just Scotophile, I guess is the right word. The Bowmanville Older Adults Association is throwing a Robbie Burns lunch on Tuesday, January 21st. The festivities start at 11 a.m. followed by lunch and haggis, just like Robbie himself would have enjoyed. There'll be door prizes, a 50-50 draw, and a lot more fun. So check it out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trail.
Thank you very much. And as somebody whose family is of Scottish persuasion, I can assure you how much we love Robbie Burns, and I hate haggis. Thank you. It's an acquired taste for sure. Okay, so just one announcement pertaining to Ward 3. Please unwind with friends over drinks and Lego. The Clarington Library, Museum, and Archives is collaborating with Chronicle Brewing for an evening of Lego and loggers on Wednesday, January 22nd at 6 p.m. Stop by the brewery on Lake Road and have fun. And I'd also like to share that Chronicle Brewing is actually expanding and that they're going to be opening a second location in Oshawa. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wu.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Anderson. This past Thursday, January 16th, one of our citizens, longtime Curtis resident, Lloyd Down, celebrated his 103rd birthday. And there was a celebration with family and friends gathering to celebrate his 103rd birthday. And if you were to sit down and with Lloyd, he's still sharp of mind, still keeps abreast of what's going on in the community, certainly, with family and community, very important to him. So Mayor Foster and I had the pleasure of going over and being able to celebrate with him. When he celebrated his 100th birthday, that was also Roy Nichols Motors' 100th birthday. And obviously the centennial year, and Lloyd was able to produce the sales receipts of 20 vehicles that he had bought at Roy Nichols Motors. But certainly a local resident, I'm assuming probably the oldest within Clarington. So happy birthday to Lloyd and continue health and happiness. Another one, and again, this is next Monday, but when we have announcements, be in the evening, but certainly I did want to recognize that the 27th of January, 2025 is the International Day of Commemoration in memory of the victims of the Holocaust. And it marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau, the largest of the Nazi concentration camps, but it's also the 30th anniversary of the genocide of Bosnia. And hopefully we never, ever repeat that. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Swart, you're online. Announcements, please.
Yes. I have no announcement other than to say that as we snuggle into our warm beds, let's be mindful of our fellow citizens who do not have access to the same luxuries that we take for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll move on to public meetings. Public meetings, and I believe we have two of them. Mr. Clerk, go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So agenda items 10.1 and 10.2 are public meetings tonight. Let me just get the first one up. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act concerning two applications, being a rezoning to permit 285 residential dwelling units of various forms in Bowmanville, and a rezoning to permit 187 residential dwelling units of various forms in Bowmanville. The purpose of the meeting is to hear and receive public comments concerning the applications. As of June 6, 2024, Provincial Bill 185 became law. Bill 185 removed appeal rights, specifically the rights of neighbors, individuals, companies, and ratepayer groups. This implies that the only option for neighbors to make their case about a development proposal is before council. The public meeting will proceed in the following manner. Members of the public will be invited one at a time to offer any comments. Those who have registered, if any, will be called on first, then anyone in council chambers, then anyone who may have joined online. This is your opportunity to express support for or objection to the application. If you have questions for the applicant or agent or municipal staff, please state your questions and they will be noted and responded to at a later date or time. Written comments or questions may be submitted to the planning department at any time to planning@clarington.net. Please keep your comments tonight to a maximum of 5 minutes, and you may only speak once to each application at this public meeting. Once you've finished providing your comments, committee members may have questions for you. Once all members of the public have had a chance to speak, the applicant or the agent for the applicant may provide comments or respond to questions from committee. Agenda item 10.1 is a zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the creation of 285 residential units consisting of 37 single detached dwelling units, 60 semi-detached dwelling units, 88 street-related townhouse units, and 2 medium-density blocks showing a total of 100 stacked townhouse condominium units in Bowmanville. A park and partial school site are also proposed. File number is ZBA 2022-26, and we start with members of the public who have registered, and first up tonight is Libby Rakansky. Please come forward, Libby.
Good evening. Can I confirm once more how many minutes can I get? Because I'm commenting on one issue for both subdivisions. So do I have to repeat everything what I'm going to say for? Because it's the same.
Okay, so you have 5 minutes. Are you indicating that you're doing both together? I think,
Yeah, I have one PowerPoint for both.
okay. It's up to you. If you want just one will
I
suffice, that's
always
good.
mess up with this, you know. Okay. Good evening. Bowmanville Avenue development east and west. Are extensions to Nash Road necessary? That is my main question for both. On the left side, the red arrow is pointing to provincially significant wetland complex prepared by MNRF in green color. On the right side, yellow arrow is pointing to Nash Road, like a road map with a road, so you have some ideas where the wetlands are. Both developments have parks, Bowmanville Avenue that leads to the north to Highway 407, south to shopping plazas, and east and west to the Highway 401, to the existing schools, government offices like this one, and etc. Why would the residents need to use Nash Road, where there are no parks but one for the whole Ward 2 and Curtis North, no shopping plazas or available schools? I have marked the extension of Nash Road by black X for you. Lands north of Nash contain provincially significant wetland Harmony Black Farewell Wetland Complex. Lands south of Nash contain Maple Grove provincially significant wetlands. Most of these wetlands were already removed by development for road widening. Just before Christmas, you were dealing with 2 subdivisions along Nash Road without parks and schools. Traffic there is horrific already, as per local residents. Connectivity of road extensions are the ideas of the past, when wetlands were plentiful. These kinds of road extensions don't conform with municipal, regional, provincial, nor federal climate change policies, nor strategic plans. This way, you will never achieve provincial policy statement to build walkable, safe, and healthy communities. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you see, I have problems with my hands. More experienced towns or cities are building self-contained subdivisions with higher densities. You can go to Oshawa, Mississauga, or anywhere. Some subdivisions are fenced in with only one exit entrance to protect safety of residents. If you would be listening to the news, more and more people are suffering from mental illnesses for various reasons. And shootings, break-ins, car thefts, and etc. are increasing. With less roads, the opportunity to commit these inhumane actions by certain individuals, groups decreases. It can be doable. You just have to ask for it, will you? Because you already asked, for example, for park and so on. It was in your Facebook. So I saw you guys like you were celebrating parks. And it was very good from you and from, how is it called, the subdivision by, well, they know, I already talked to these people. I included for you the link for health and these diseases, mental illnesses, and so on. Mental illnesses of Curtis residents without parks and lots of pests like mosquitoes, ticks, now without wildlife that used to consume them, cannot be environmental factors like isolation, boredom, using drugs, contracting illnesses like Lyme disease, West Nile virus, and so on. Please help us just like you helped
Mr.
these people
Kansky,
living in these subdivisions.
Mr. Kansky,
I'm done.
you're done? Okay,
Yeah, but
that's
I had
good.
to
Right
speed
on
it
cue.
up.
Right on cue.
And I'm reading always, Clarington Connected. So I hope that you can help your residents to save money, because with Trump's tariffs, you can expect some nice additions. So try to save on anything you can, like this road extension.
Okay. Are there any questions from members of council for Mr. Kansky? I don't see any, so thank you very much, and thank you for your advocacy. Thank you.
Do I have to sign?
No, we have your information.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Next on my list is Jim Durlatka. Jim, please come forward.
Today, good? Awesome. Okay. Councilors, my name is Jim Durlatka, and I am an IT consultant. I moved to Bowmanville to get away from the city where I used to live. My spouse and I wanted a better life in a country community with a small town feel, and we felt that Nash Road was the spot for us. I am here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed development at Bowmanville Avenue, Nash, and Longworth. As a resident of the community, I am deeply concerned about the negative impact this development will have on this area specifically. Firstly, the proposed development will significantly increase traffic congestion in our area. The current infrastructure is already struggling to accommodate the existing traffic, and adding more vehicles will only exacerbate the problem. This will lead to longer commute times, increased pollution, decrease in overall quality of life for the residents. Traffic specifically on Nash Road will increase, as many already use it as a bypass to Highway 2, and it is also being used for bicycle clubs today. Secondly, the development will put a strain on our local resources and services. Our schools, healthcare facilities, public services are already operating at full capacity. The influx of new residents will overwhelm these services, leading to a decline in their quality and availability. Whom here has gone to the Bowmanville Hospital and waited for 8 hours in the emergency room? I know I have. Furthermore, the proposed development will have a detrimental effect on the environment. The construction will result in the loss of green space and wildlife habitats, which are essential for maintaining the ecological balance in our area. Additionally, the increased pollution from noise and construction and additional traffic will harm the health and well-being of residents. This area, for anyone that lives here, is home to a group of approximately 20 wild turkeys. And on any given day in the spring or fall, you can go to that area where those fields are and park and watch the turkeys roam freely. The area is also home to many fox, coyotes, birds, and yes, even turtles. I've actually had to save a turtle off the road before because it was stuck in the middle. We now have developments at Hancock Road where the standard subdivisions are moving eastward, and this new development will move west on Nash. In the summer of 2024, many of the residents on Nash Road where I live, for the first time have seen an increase in the rat population, and many of the neighbors are now having to set traps and contact like a rat rodent person to remove rats. This is due to the disturbance of the land, and the rats then leave where the open fields are. So currently on Hancock, they are moving east, and when this construction starts at Bowmanville Avenue, they will start to move west, and that puts it right at Nash Road, where I am. This will be right in the community that people live on Nash, and the various side roads along Nash Road. Will the town be helping the rats in our homes and the cost to the residents? I got a quote from Skedaddle, and it was $5,000. In closing, along with my Change.org, which I've had a petition on Facebook with over almost 100 signatures today, I've been posting a lot on the communities. Unfortunately, many people have said that we cannot stop progress, so it doesn't matter what our community says. I don't believe that, or shall I say, I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that this council will hear the voice of the community and take action to stop this development. This will put faith back in the community that this council listens to its citizens. Once again, I urge you to consider the long-term consequences of this development on our town. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I hope you will take our concerns into consideration and oppose the development at Nash, Bowmanville Avenue in Longworth.
Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. I believe there are questions from members of council for you. And I see Mayor Foster. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking if we're doing all right. I think everyone's doing all right, although perhaps a little confused with events of today. But that's a whole other story. So, Jim, you said you moved out of Toronto. When did you move into Clarington?
I was actually in Whitby, and my spouse was in Oshawa.
Okay,
And we were in subdivisions where, you know, you do this and you touch your neighbor on this side and you touch your neighbor on that side. And we didn't want to live in subdivisions like that.
But I'm curious as to how long you've been here in Clarington.
I moved to Bowmanville on Nash Road in the fall of 2022. So I haven't been a resident of this area for long.
So Jim, you're aware that the meeting tonight is purely to get information from residents such as yourselves. There are some neighbors, I think, here, and that we are making no decision on moving forward
Correct.
or not.
Just my comments and my...
Yes, your comments are being noted, and you know that, and I'm asking this question for a reason, hoping that everyone is listening. Should you come up with other comments, you can email staff.
Perfect.
Of course, with them within the period of time. Do you follow provincial legislation at all?
A little bit. These days, federal has always been the big one, right? So what's happening in the States today and our Ottawa and everything.
Yeah, I brought that one up. That's my fault. So are you aware with provincial legislation that when an application is filed, we are required to process that application within a certain period of time?
What does required to process mean?
So we are legally required to process the application.
Does that mean pass it so that the development can happen?
It doesn't mean pass it, but and I've got to ask questions.
For sure.
That's the format here. So are you aware, if you look at the official plan, that if the application is made to fit with the official plan, that if we say no, the proponents can go to a thing called the OLT.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. Are you aware that we would rather be at the table rather than having the OLT, which is like a court telling us what to do?
Yes, my understanding of the Ontario Land Tribunal is they give the power to the developer, which can sort of overwrite the municipality's decision from a high level.
Sort of, kind of. It's not quiz, so they don't really give the power, but they do a judicial ruling that we have to follow. So, and thank you for allowing me to maybe try to share some information, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Jim, don't go anywhere yet. There are more questions for you. Councillor Wu, go ahead, please.
And through the chair, and thank you very much, Jim, and to our further conversations earlier, pretty well, Mayor Foster had pretty well explained everything that I was going to say to you, other than, and we did say earlier about the appeal rights, and you might have heard, is there a reverberation? Or?
Yes, there is. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, when we were speaking about the appeal rights, so as Mayor Foster did say, the opportunity is now to have your friends. You recognize this? That's your change order.
Thank you. You printed it out. Awesome.
I printed
Appreciate
it
that.
So if any of your neighbors or whatever cannot appear here tonight, they could write in or call our planning department, just so you know.
So in the second half for the other one, I do have comments from my neighbors that they've provided to me, so I'm going to be reading them out to you.
And were you aware, I appreciate you mentioned about being in the hospital. We have a great healthcare system right here. Were you aware of the redevelopment of Bonneville Hospital?
I've heard about it. I don't know about all the finite details to the hospital. I mean, the hospital problem in Ontario is not just Bowmanville, it's every hospital that has this challenge. But the more communities continue to grow, the worse the hospital situations will be everywhere, including here. And I know many people from like Durham region towards the west end will often come out to Bowmanville because it's a smaller hospital and they feel they get a better quality of care. But that still doesn't change the fact that many people still wait many, many hours.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And just to reiterate, Mayor Foster laid it out that, yeah, your councils were listening, but it's not up to us in many cases. So just want you to be aware of that. And I will reiterate that no decisions are being made tonight.
Yep.
Staff are taking notes and listening to the public. So we're doing our due diligence that way. So thank you for coming now.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's my list of registered speakers. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of or objection to? Please come forward. Please state your name for the record at the beginning of your comments. And then once you're done, please fill out the form that's next to you there once you've finished your comments, okay?
Okay, thank you. My name is Thorsten Kosek. I'm a longtime resident of this area. I purchased my first house here at the age of 22. I've owned several other homes in this area, and I'm a resident of Bonneville. Part of my community service, I've been the chair of the Lake Ridge Health Hospital, so I know exactly what's going on with the hospital. I was also involved with the local university, Ontario Tech, and been on their board of trustees for 6 years, 9 years on the hospital. Been on the Valley 2000 committee, helping guide directions on paths and nature spaces here, plus junior achievement, volunteer firefighter, you name it, I'm involved with this community. I see a tragic happening in this community right now, and I understand what you're talking about, Mayor Foster, and I support that with the Ontario Land Tribunal, and as you know, I'm with them right now. The frustrating part is that the developers can skip council, as you said, basically skip the residents and go right to the Ontario Land Tribunal. They have a 98% success rate, Caitlin does. So why wouldn't you as a developer? So we don't even have a chance as the people to hear our voices. So here's what I implore to you. I reviewed the development proposal on this one, but it's all of it. All the way from basically up Highway 57, from Aspen Springs, all the way almost up to the 407. We have a very unique opportunity here as a town and council. There's very few homes along that area, and how do we want to see the growth? We have a roadmap. We know what the 407 does to other communities. We see it. You can see what happened in Oshawa. Take a look at the development of Costco. You can argue that's great development. You can argue it's not. Do we want to look like Mississauga East, or do we want to look like a Guelph? Right? It's the council's job to determine the vision of this town. That's what we elected you for. And I think everybody in this year, I elected you, so, or apart you, so I'm happy to see that. So here's the issue that we have, right? We have the issue here where, for example, the traffic study. If you look at the traffic study, it was done during COVID. What happened during COVID?
Nobody traveled.
Got it. We're all, except for essential services, we're told to stay at home. So how is that a valid traffic study? The next one is, if you take a look at the development, they're all done in pockets. So every pocket is developing their own little thing. No one's looking at the bigger picture. That's why you're not seeing the additions of schools. That's why you're not seeing the additions of a new hospital. That's why you're not seeing new parks, because every little zone doesn't require it. You look at 57 Highway 2, 4,000 residents are going to be put there as a proposal, 40-story buildings. We have an old long-term care home. It's going to have 300-400 residents. We're going to have this subdivision. Not one study incorporates it all. So the reason why I'm speaking is we need a plan. And the first thing we ask developers, how does this line up with the vision that we have as a community? Does it support the vision? Have the studies been done right? The traffic studies, the wildlife, review the wildlife study. No mention of coyotes, no mention of deer, no mention of possums, Nothing. Right? The validity of these experts are not good. From a safety perspective, take a look at what happens from access. Highway 57, Highway 2, that intersection. Over a year of under construction, still not finished. And look at the mayhem it created. Now we're going to put development all the way up. It should have been made 2 lanes all the way through when you're redoing that intersection, all the way down to Highway 2. That's forward planning. I implore the council and the planning department to forward plan. What is our vision 10, 20 years from now? How is the development going to look at the 407? We know we're going to develop at the 407 because every other community has done it. Is there plans to put hospitals, schools there? How does the infrastructure support that? How does 57 support that? Where are those answers? And no one's asking those questions. We're all looking at as little pockets. We cannot stop development. And I'm not here to stop development. I support development. Because if you look back, I wouldn't be living here if it wasn't for development. Because you can say the community 35 years ago saying, don't build those there, I wouldn't live here. So we need development, but we gotta do it right. And we gotta do it with a master plan. And you have to listen to the community, because we have some great ideas. So I implore you, please listen, take it to heart, incorporate some big decisions. We have a big global picture of our plan, not these little pockets driven by developers. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there questions from members of council?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chair, I'm going to go to Mr. Lyons. And Mr. Lyons, I don't disagree with the pockets, and that's a concern with these and with these proposals in terms of sequential development. But can you speak to for the audience, the official plan, how the official plan works, the engagement with the official plan, the secondary plans, so the vision and trying to view things, maybe to address some of the concerns we've just heard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. So the official plan for the municipality of Clarington deals with all of Clarington. It's not just dealing with pockets. But what I should flag is, based on some of the earlier comments from members of council and the mayor as well, we work in a top-down scenario. The province outlines the framework for planning within the province of Ontario through the Planning Act, through provincial plans, through the provincial planning statement, which used to be the provincial policy statement, and then a variety of provincial plans that apply within this area, Oak Ridges Moraine, Greenbelt, et cetera. Clarington has a relatively current official plan. Durham Region just actually got an approval on their official plan that will guide growth out to 2051. Mm-hmm. As of January 1st of this year, Durham Region was removed as a planning authority, and their official plan was deemed to be our official plan. So now, as of January 1st, the Durham Region official plan and the Clarington official plan resides within Clarington, and it provides guidance for all aspects of land use for all of Clarington. What will be coming next is the fact that we will need to be doing an update to our official plan and integrating the Durham Region official plan and reflecting the new provincial planning statement that just came into effect last October. So there is a larger exercise that will broadly be looking and setting the path forward for land use through a full public process, decisions by council, and then ultimately under the new framework, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing would be approving that official plan review process. There is also a secondary plan that has been done for this area. Unfortunately, it has been appealed and it is before the Ontario Land Tribunal, and it was intended to guide development through this entire area. So as outlined within the staff report that is included as part of this public meeting for this item, as well as the next, there is clear indication from our staff in the fact that these should not proceed until we have a policy basis in order to make a decision upon them.
I'm happy to hear that, because that's the way it should work, right? We should be following the larger framework. So that's what I'm hearing, right?
So, Mr. Chair, that wasn't open debate between, that was a question from me to Mr. Lyons, just the way the process works, but I thought the explanation may be helpful. Thank you. And good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rang, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and through you, welcome, Thorsten. Good to see you again. And thank you for your work for so many years on behalf of Lakeridge Health, which I know well. So it's great to see you here, and thank you for your comments today. I'm going to ask you a question because that's what I have to do, as the mayor is fond of reminding me. Are you aware of comments made? I know you probably follow these meetings religiously and watch them and eat popcorn while doing so. Are you aware of a request made to planning, I think by yours truly, a while ago to assess the impact of some of these piecemeal developments on our secondary plan? Because we do have, you mentioned the 40-story buildings that a developer wants to place at the corner of Bowmanville Ave and Highway 2, for example. There's a concern, I think, by me and other members of council that, you know, with these piecemeal carve-outs of the secondary plan, that exactly what you're saying is. So I'm just wondering if you're aware that that request had been made.
I'm aware that a request, none of the details. Okay. And I also represent a community, as you know, as well, Lloyd, so whatever gets discussed, I bring back very similar to as my fellow neighbor here does as well. Okay. That we don't flood, let's call it emails with 100 emails from different people all saying the same thing, that we collect it and then we are a voice of many. So that was the big concern that my community that I represent has, that we have a bigger picture look at this and to make sure that all lines up, because we have a huge opportunity here, right? There's the 57 basically from asphalt all the way up. We have to do it right. And really what I want from this community is when it's done right, when other communities will come here and copy what we do for development, then we know we've done it right. And that's what I want. I want other communities to come to here and saying, hey, what did Bowmanville do with this? Right? How did we handle this? Wow, it ever looks fantastic. Look at the support of the community. Look at the infrastructure. Growth is inevitable, but we got to have the infrastructure that supports it.
So again, the nature of my question was just to say.
So I'm aware of a little bit, Lloyd, not the details.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, are you aware that council's aware and that we've requested input from staff on these carve-outs, because there is a plan governing the area, but again, developers have the ability, as the mayor mentioned, to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal and carve out their own sort of plans, notwithstanding that plan. So I'm just okay.
I'm very well aware of that.
Okay, so then,
yeah, as you know,
I know. So then, question then through the chair to Deputy CAO, specifically about the question raised by Thorsten. North of, and this actually applies to the previous presentation as well, so it's a good question to ask. So north of Nash Road, I think what we're talking about is that area sort of north of Nash going up to the 407. Is there currently a development plan for that area? And if so, what does that look like? And if not, when can we expect that? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
So through the chair, there currently is, of course, official plan coverage for all of the lands within Clarington. As you can well appreciate, the further we get north, the closer we get into areas including the Oak Ridges Moraine, as well as the Greenbelt Plan that have very restrictive policies about where growth and development can occur. The region's current official plan that is now ours, it designates all growth out to 2051, and it includes our boundary expansions that do not go up to 407. So those are things that we would have to look at through the ongoing official plan review. And of course, that'll be supported with growth management work, environmental work, transportation work, all of the elements that we would need in order to bring matters in front of council to make informed decisions about where growth should be going and focused into the future.
Councilor, you shouldn't have turned your mic off. Go ahead, please.
Sorry about that. Old habits die hard, Chair. So, so then the follow-up question to that specifically then, is there a sort of secondary plan governing, like do we currently have a detailed plan governing the area north of Nash Road? And where could folks find that?
So through that, I think I'm going to actually ask our senior planner, Nicole, who can actually answer that question as the file planner with this one.
Through the chair, there are no secondary plans further north of here because it's in the greenbelt. So this is sort of Brook Hill is the northwest secondary plan. That's the furthest one in our urban boundaries of Bowmanville, and then after that, it's the greenbelt. So as you go further up 57, there's North Glen, which is a neighborhood area, but that's not under a secondary plan. But then other than that, it's the greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you. To Mr. Lyons, the area surrounding the 407, isn't that in the Greenbelt, most of it?
To the chair, a lot of the land there is in the green belt. There are pockets that are probably not within the green belt because of how it goes down with the natural heritage, but the vast majority it would be. It will also be designated agricultural or rural.
Okay, so the chance of development there is slim and none, basically? No?
At this point, in accordance with the provincial planning statement that's now in effect since October, we would have to do appropriate justification to demonstrate where growth should go as we go forward. We have current population employment forecasts in the Durham official plan to accommodate growth to 2051.
Thank you. Mayor Foster?
So, Mr. Chair, my bad. We're supposed to be talking about a specific file. I'm not sure for all of the residents here. We've gone rather broadly afield, pardon the pun.
Yeah, I do realize that, but the delegate raised it, so I just thought I would.
Oh, and I'm guilty of starting that.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this file? We don't usually do. We don't usually do that.
I still had a minute and 32 left.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I had a minute 32.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I appreciate that. So just in closing, the reason I asked that question up to the 407, and I knew the answer, right? That is why the importance now, you can't even stretch out the development of the 407. It now means it's all congested here. That is why I asked that question and brought that forward. That is how important it is to develop this properly, because we cannot correct it by going to the 407 or what happens through there, because most of it is greenbelt. Yes, there's pockets. You cannot put a hospital there. You cannot put a school there. So when developers say, hey, we're going to put it here, here, and here, it's greenbelt. You can't. So the plan has to be for here. Thank you.
Pointing. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this application? Libby, you've already spoken once.
You already spoke, yeah.
You have to wait for the next one. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to the application?
Libby, when you...
Something very important for safety. I almost got in accident.
Libby, when the next one comes up, it's the same area, you can speak to that, you can make your point then.
So I can speak about safety.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the application? Going once. Okay, moving on. Right now then, we will ask the applicant or agent for the applicant, and I have Mark Jacobs from the Big Larry Group to please come forward. Mark, just give me 1 second, okay?
Hi, good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Committee, and everyone else here tonight and maybe watching us online. My name is Mark Jacobs. I'm an associate with Big Larry Group, and we are the planners on behalf of the owners of these lands. And I'm here to make a presentation on the development proposal before you. The subject site is on the west side of Bowmanville Avenue, south of Nash Road. Bowmanville Valley Conservation Areas to the north and to the east, also to the east on the other side of Bowmanville Avenue, or 57 as it's also known as, is 2547 Bowmanville Avenue, which is subject to the public meeting presentation after this one. There are some commercial uses further to the east at Scugog Street, as well as to the south along Highway 2. And while the immediate lands are agricultural, there are a number of applicant properties around the subject site to the south that have received draft plan approval and are within the Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan, the first phase of that secondary plan. And those draft plan approved lands basically consist from Longworth Avenue south to the existing developments just north of Highway 2. The subject site is approximately just over 11 hectares in size, with just over 330 meters of frontage on Nash Road and 200 meters of frontage on Bowmanville Avenue. As mentioned, it's agricultural property, and surrounding the site are other agricultural properties. To the south is also, as I mentioned, Longworth Avenue, which is proposed to be extended to the west and will be all the way to Maple Grove Road. And that has been identified in the Clarington's official plan, as well as the Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan. These are just some pictures of the site and some surrounding land uses. As mentioned, it's primarily agricultural and rural, but this area is changing. In terms of the planning context, it is designated as community areas in the Durham Regional Official Plan. The Clarington Official Plan also designates the site as urban residential, which is envisioned for residential uses for this property. Bowmanville Avenue is also a local corridor, which allows for greater densities and higher built form. The site is also within the Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan, which was adopted by this council in May of 2021. It did receive final approval by Durham Region in July of this year. While there were a number of appeals, as far as my understanding, those were site-specific in nature that, with respect to those individual properties and the designation on those specific properties. The site is also zoned agricultural in the Clarington zoning bylaw. Within the Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan, there's a number of designations that apply to the site, including medium density local corridor, medium density residential, low density residential. There's also a school identified on the site, a parkette, as well as an area on the southwest it's called environmental constraints. It's an overlay that requires further review of any environmental features that are on the property and requires a study such as an environmental impact study to assess what's on the property and the potential impacts to those lands. And also want to mention that Clarington Boulevard is on the west side of the property, is identified as a collector road, which will essentially form an extension of Nash Road. The portion of Nash Road that turns south, essentially it would continue as Clarington Boulevard down towards Highway 2 as a collector road. As far as the specific land use designations, the medium density local corridor permits a number of uses, including residential and non-residential uses, and a variety of building types, including street townhouses, stacked townhouses, apartment buildings, mixed-use buildings, and they're all to be within a prescribed height and density of minimum 3 stories and maximum 6 stories, and minimum density of 40 units per net hectare. As far as the medium density residential, again, there permits a variety of housing types within low and mid-rise built forms, minimum of 2, maximum of 4 stories, and minimum density of 40 units per net hectare. The low density residential designation permits a variety of housing types, and in this case, height and density are a maximum of 3 stories and minimum density of 13 units per net hectare. In terms of the requirements for the parkette that is identified on the site, it must be between half a hectare to 1 hectare. There's also the elementary school with the Clarington official plan requiring a minimum of 2.5 hectares for elementary schools. And as mentioned, there's the environmental constraint, which requires further study in terms of the natural heritage features that may be present on the site. As for the proposed development, this has been prepared in accordance with the council adopted and regional approved Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan. There are it's a mix of single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and stacked townhouse dwellings, as well as street townhouses. I won't get into all the details of how many there are, but they've been designed and to be in conformity with the Brook Hill Neighborhood Secondary Plan that was adopted and approved as mentioned. We're also including the Clarington Boulevard Collector Road along the west side, or a portion of that. The remaining portion will be developed with the neighboring lands when they come up for development. There's a number of excuse me, public roads that are through the site, the main access being Street A, which is identified as a collector road in the secondary plan. And there's also a number of local roads that have been designed in accordance with the municipality standards. On the screen are just some examples of the semi-detached dwellings that are being proposed for the site. There's a variety of different styles. They might look the same on these images, but the intent is to provide variety when you go along and driving along each block. The same thing applies to the single detached dwellings. There's a number of different models that the owners are looking at building on the site, and the further designs of these will be reviewed as the development applications get processed further. And here are some renderings of the proposed models for the semi-detached, single-detached, and street townhouses that are being offered or will be offered in the future. And these designs may change depending on market conditions and different architectural models that are being proposed. In terms of the medium density corridor designation, there are 2 condominium blocks proposed. Each of them will feature 3-story stacked townhouse units, which access via private roads. And each block, they will be condominium blocks, and they will be providing the appropriate number of visitor parking spaces that are required under the Clarington zoning bylaw. As far as the zoning that's being proposed, there are a number of zone categories that are being requested as they relate to the specific building types, and they all correspond with the land use designations in the secondary plan. We're requesting some site-specific provisions as they relate to the individual building types, and they're all provided through the draft zoning bylaw that was submitted to staff. In addition, there are a number of studies that were prepared in support of the proposed development. These are all available with staff. They've all been done in accordance with all the municipality standards and requirements, and they've all have been prepared in support of the proposed development. That concludes the presentation for this site, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, and there are questions. Mayor Foster.
Thank you. I think we're all struggling with not pushing the button. We'll get there. Mark, thank you. Good evening. Mark, while we haven't seen staff comments, and we will get further back, 2 things I'm curious about. The non-sequential development is a challenge for us. We will end up plowing and sending equipment. There is a financial ramification to the municipality where you've got these isolated at this point in time. I'm curious as to your thoughts about that.
Through the chair, as I noted in my presentation, there are a number of draft approved plans to the south. They have not started construction. They have not done their marketing yet, and as of now, they have not been registered. Those are owned by other landowners, and so we cannot control when they will come onto the market or come online. But these lands are, as I said, approved in the secondary plan, designated for development. As far as the infrastructure required, the construction at Highway 2 and 57 was related to the region bringing up some of the, I believe it's the sanitary sewers up to Stevens Road. As far as expanding 57 to 4 lanes, that is a regional road, as you know. And so that is subject to their own capital works program. The proposed development, will be provided, they're subject to development charges like any other development, and which provides those contributions to the various infrastructure and services that are being allocated for, that development charges are being paid for.
So my concern is more operational, where we have pockets, and the reason we prefer sequential development is that we're not sending, for example, crews, but that's fine. So I'm assuming in the report, staff indicate that they believe you jumped the gun a little bit on this, just in terms of the secondary plan approval. That might be an actual quote out of, was premature, I think was in there. So is your intent to get moving on this as quickly as possible? So,
Through the chair, yes, it is the owner's intent to move forward. I mean, the secondary plan was adopted by this council in 2021, so it took a number of years to get their final approval from the region. For various reasons, I don't want to get into that now, and I'm not part of those reasons, but it did take an unusually long time for that final approval from the region.
well, I do bring this up because there is a deep frustration, and the building industry hears this, of proponents coming forward, forcing us to process the applications, and then we don't see permits being pulled forever. Tribute doesn't typically do that, so just curious on that. Similar to, I think, what happened in Curtis, you're looking for smaller frontages that we are very hesitant on some of the built form, smaller frontages that we are concerned, and the concern is with on-street parking, particularly as we're looking at ADUs. So the potential for multiple families in smaller houses, limited parking, and then even more limited with those smaller frontages. And Councillor Rang has asked staff to come back so we can take a look at that. Can you give us any opinions, insight into that? Because that is a big concern, particularly in winter. There's a snow. You know, where do you put your car when you've got room for 2 cars? And I guess now you can have 2 ADUs or additional units per dwelling as of right, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just curious, and maybe broadly, you're not specific to this, but it's problematic.
Through the chair, ADUs require an additional parking space. Will not get, I mean, while they're as of right permitted, they still require that parking space on the property. So you'd still, my understanding is if a townhouse requires 2 parking spaces, the ADU is a 3rd parking space. And so if you cannot provide it on the site, then there will be a challenge in providing that parking and getting a permit for the ADU. As far as, with respect to the lot frontages, and traditionally in Clarington, it's been 7 meters or 23 feet. And, the proposal is for 20-foot townhouses, so a little narrower. But our experience, these are being offered in many municipalities. And it is subject to that on-street parking plan. And we must demonstrate, and as we've done in ours, that we can provide that required visitor parking for the townhouses as well as the single detached and semi-detached dwellings. And that on-street parking plan must be done in with the municipality's requirements. They have parking space length, distance from driveways. There's a number of criteria that we must follow, and we've done that on our on-street parking plan.
So thank you. And I bring this up as a broad concern that's not going to be specific to this development, but with some of the changes coming down from the province, I don't know that our residents understand the potential impact moving forward and what people are going to be doing with cars, with traditional development. And far wider lots, parking has always been an issue. This type of development is going to make that more difficult without the province necessarily being in a supporting role on that. And you know what, that was me speechifying. I'll finish. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Foster. Councillor Rang, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. And through you to the Mayor, speechifying is fine by me. Just a quick note on what the Mayor was speaking about, which is the parking study. I'm pleased to note that staff are moving forward on that because I share the concern about bigger vehicles, shorter driveways, kids staying home for longer, and people storing stuff in their garage, causing challenges with parking. Wanted to thank you, Mark, for the parkland that's on the plan. That's always a concern of mine, and I just wanted to note that there's a generous, in actually both this application and the application to come. So I'll make that comment for both applications. So thank you for that. So just a question about access to Nash Road on this plan, and maybe this is through you, Chair, a question to staff, but also potentially a question for Mark. I note, so you've got Street C and Street D, both emptying out onto Nash Road. I'm curious what the plan is for Nash Road then, because are those, I assume those are exits to Nash Road, unless they're terminal. I don't think they're terminal on the plan here. So is the plan to widen Nash Road or do road improvements on Nash Road, because it's quite narrow there? So I'm wondering, first of all, if we can speak to that. So that's my first question.
Through the chair, I'll start with Street C. Like, there is a intersection proposed, or access to Nash Road proposed from Street C. How Nash Road will ultimately look to the west of Street C remains to be determined. The way the subdivision has been designed, it will allow for access based on the current configuration. If you have a chance to look at the urban design guidelines for the secondary plan, there's a demonstration plan there that doesn't actually show Nash Road in its current configuration. So there's a little bit of uncertainty, I guess, for Nash Road to the east of Street C. As far as the second access that you see on the screen for Street D, on our draft plan subdivision, we're actually showing that access as a future roadblock. Should Nash Road continue in its current configuration, it could potentially have an intersection. But as the draft plan of subdivision is currently designed, Street D is actually an elbow road. So it'd go north and then it'd turn to the west. And so we've sort of established a park block there for a potential future road or connection to Nash. Just given that there's a little bit of uncertainty in what happens with Nash Road at this time.
I guess thank you for that, Mark. I think that that summarizes sort of my one concern, which is the additional use of Nash Road in its current configuration doesn't seem to me to be terribly workable. That's my non-professional, non-planner opinion, but that seems somewhat problematic to me to put additional load onto Nash Road when we've got potentially an extension of the street to the north-south street to the west. So that's one thing. And then just thinking about and this is a question for you and also possibly through you, Chair, to staff. So, and again, I'm conflating the two applications, so bear with me here, but Street A would continue along to the east side of Bowmanville Avenue, potentially under these two applications. But then we would also have a significant load coming from Nash Road, potentially down through, down there as well. So I'm wondering how many, if we're, and Bowmanville Avenue is of course a busy north-south corridor. I'm just concerned about the number of stops that would be required here potentially along, because we'd have Longworth, we'd have Street A, we'd have, and then we'd have a busier Nash Road. So I'm concerned about the traffic implications on Bowmanville Avenue, like either adding lights or there's a lot of flow going into Bowmanville Avenue there. And then again, concerned about as we know, we have a challenge with, with traffic coming off Bowmanville Avenue onto the 401 and that getting quite busy. I know we're widening it. So my question, I guess, would be, has a traffic study been done that would take into account this additional load on Bowmanville Avenue?
Through the chair, yes, the traffic study takes into account this proposal. It takes into account the adjacent proposal to the east. The same consultant, T.Y. Lin, I did that traffic study. taking all the full development picture into account.
Okay. And then my final question, I guess, would be wildlife studies. So if you could speak to that, because a number of residents have raised that as well in council here today. Would a wildlife study look at species in the area and the potential impact of development in this area around that, and what would the implications of that study be?
Through the chair, the environmental impact study does look at all endangered species, looks at not only the endangered species, but also the vegetation, and if there's any habitat that is proposed to be removed, it has to go through M&R.
Thank you. Ms. Zambra, do you have any additional comments?
Through the chair, yes, I just would like to add that we are requesting that the species at risk is updated as part of this study. So we did hire a peer reviewer as well for the environmental impact study on this side. So we are working with the applicants on the significance of the features that are there and the species as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Councillor Rang, does that answer your question? I just have a question. You alluded to a traffic study that was done. This was actually done during COVID, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it was done during COVID. The terms of reference was provided to Clarington and Durham Region. I'd have to go back to look at it, but there was a concern that traffic levels were lower at the time because of the pandemic and people working from home. So they had looked at using other data from before, and if there is a need to update the study with current traffic levels, we'll review those comments. To this day, we've not received any comments yet on the application from staff, but we're happy to sit down with staff at the municipality and the region to review the outcome of the traffic impact study.
So you are open to doing an updated study, correct?
We're looking at addressing any comments that staff may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any? No, unfortunately not. Are there any? Oh, Councillor Wu, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, and thank you, Mark. Just as a follow-up, and we were speaking about the environmental impact study, and that was done for you by SLR Consulting. That's section 4.6. Identifies wetland and woodlands present, correct?
Through chair, yes.
Now, on 4.24, speaks about the environmental impact study, but it also recommends that some features be removed. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes.
And what features are those?
Through chair, there are some wetland and woodland features based on the size of those features and a lack of connectivity to any other systems in the surrounding area. I think they are isolated features. It is our ecologist's opinion that these features are not a significant feature, and then therefore they have recommended or they can support removal of them.
Good. So they are features. There's a suggestion to remove them. Now, what's this compensation that would be provided?
Through the chair, what happens in other jurisdictions, if there's a feature that is being removed, that is basically compensated in another location. So some cases there's equal amount of land plus maybe 50% as provided in another location. Sometimes the compensation provided as a financial contribution that equals sort of the value of those features. And those are, where the compensation is being provided is a matter of discussions between the municipal staff as well as conservation authorities in an appropriate location.
Yep. Now, when you say they're small features, are you, like say if it's a wetland, are you sort of filling in a wetland are you taking fill or soil and filling that in?
Through the chair, there, I know I'd have to speak to our engineers and ecologists on the specifics of that, but generally the idea is that, yeah, there may be some fill being brought in. Of course, any fill brought in has to abide by all the guidelines that are in place in terms of import and export of fill. But the idea is, yeah, those lands would be slated for future development and construction.
Okay. Now, when I look at, and another one that seems to concern me all the time when we talk about school sites. And that school site that you had marked there, it does suggest that there's, within the natural heritage feature. Now, you're not giving that land to the school boards, whether it's Catholic or a public school system. In this case, it's the Catholic. They have to buy that land at market rate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when this subdivision, if and when it starts to develop, how long do you hold that land? Or how long does the school have the option to purchase it?
Through the chair, I don't have that amount of time. I don't know. They are provided for the school boards, and if they choose to take it, they may, in terms of how long they have to do that. You know, I'm not privy to that information, to be honest.
Okay. But if they do not take it, then what happens?
Then the land, basically the underlying designation applies to the site. So in this case, it's a residential designation. So yeah, residential uses can be developed on the site.
So more houses?
Yes.
Now, the land north of the school site, who owns that?
Through the chair, I don't have their names offhand. It's
okay.
I have it written down somewhere, but it's another member of the, there's a landowners group, and so they are part of that, the landowners group, and you know, that school site applies to their lands as well. And sort of when you overlay the properties, the school site sort of split the two properties, and so we're matching that, and you know, we're trying to stay as close to the demonstration plan that was prepared through the secondary plan process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't see any other speakers listed. So thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that concludes the statutory public meeting for ZBA 2022-26. If anyone has additional questions or your question has not been answered, please contact the planner on file, Nicole Zambry, Senior Planner at nzambri@clarington.net. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and back to you for the report.
Okay, so I'm going to report forward PDS-003-25. I need a motion for that. Mayor Foster and seconder, Councillor Trail. Questions or comments? And this is that, Councillor Wu, go ahead, please.
Yes, and through you to the CEO. And Mayor Foster did bring this up, and we're looking at 9.5, 9.6. Townhouses will have 6 meter frontage, and I do see that on attachment 1. When sub-meter frontages, I think we had that back in 1999. Same with the singles. They're proposing 9 meters when I think back then it was 10 meters. And for all the reasons that Mayor Foster did mention, one being parking is obviously a big issue and will be and continue to be, but the idea between ADUs. So ADUs can be, and if you can, well, it's in the report, it's proposed, you can, singles, semis, and townhouses, which this development is proposing. Singles, semis, and townhouses. So where did we get to this where going from 7 to 6 meters and 10 to 9? Where did that?
Go ahead, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I think what's really happened is it's over time, planning in Ontario has been looking at how do you support affordable housing? How do you support a mix and range of housing? Specifically within Clarington, 10 to 9, that has come about through council resolutions, looking at adaptation and development patterns over many, many years. What we've seen most recently, as I'm still relatively new to Clarington, that I've already seen at least 4 or 5 applications come in front of PDC and then council that does speak to going down to 6 meters instead of 7 meters for singles. It has been accepted based on the recommendations by staff. Parking is going to be an ongoing issue. It's something to look for. How do we deal with it? Where do we deal with it? The province actually has come out with a framework for major transit station areas, for example, that we can't even require a minimum amount of parking. So in those cases, we could end up in situations with a lot of housing and no parking whatsoever, and the province has essentially said that's the case. There's also been conversation tonight around ADUs. The province has also come out with a regulation most recently that actually talks about increased lot coverage that's permitted within units to deal with ADUs. And realistically, yes, we can still require 1 parking lot per, but on the flip side, it becomes more challenging depending on the more intensive nature as you go into townhomes and more intensive types of units. So it is something that is very critical for a municipality to be looking at, to try and figure out how do we accommodate as we have a community that is growing. How do we deal with increased levels of transit, other methods to allow for people to move around, active networks, including trails, multi-use paths, all of those pieces. There is going to be, through the official plan review, that we did start, and now we've got to restart it because of the fact that the Durham Region official plan is now deemed to be our official plan. There is a transportation master plan component of this, which is where we'll be looking at the entire transportation network. We've had Councillor Rang has spoken about the parking study and trying to understand what that looks like. All of these pieces are very important pieces that we will need to look at through that process that will also be inform us as we look at these development applications. Staff have not made any recommendations on this application to date. They are still reviewing all of the studies, including the transportation, the parking, the environmental, all aspects of all of these applications. And I do want to just clarify one thing, is that both applications that we're hearing tonight, they are within an area that is under appeal on the secondary plan. The board has not issued a decision, to my knowledge and understanding, that has given a go-ahead on any of the land use policy within this area. So we are working in a bit of a policy vacuum as well. So we're reviewing based on the material we have, but there is clarity provided in the staff report on both of these that we believe it is premature until we find the decision that comes out of the Ontario Land Tribunal to inform an appropriate recommendation to council.
Okay. Yeah, there was one thing that, through the chair, that you mentioned about when we look at the reduction in frontages, about providing affordability. And Mr. Jacobs had up there the pictures of the homes, and they're beautiful homes. But I'd like to think, who are they affordable to? And that's the other one, the definition of affordability. The province, and can you correct me if I'm wrong, they still haven't come out with a definition of affordable, have they? Or attainable?
So through the chair, the province has come out with a definition of affordable. It's contained within the new provincial planning statement. It has essentially gone back, as much as the province has waffled on that issue a little bit, but they have essentially gone back to the old definition. So it's the one that we've always been using, the 30 percentile based on income levels across the regional market area. So it is common around that. Dealing with attainable, the province has not defined attainable at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Foster, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lyons, we're throwing some jargon around here. Again, I'm just as guilty. I wonder if, for the folks that are here, an ADU is?
So through the chair to the mayor, that is an additional dwelling unit. So essentially, based on the provincial rules under the Planning Act, it allows somebody to have essentially 3 dwelling units on a property. So if you have a house, for example, a single detached dwelling, you could have an additional dwelling in your basement. You could potentially have one above your garage, or you could separate your basement into 2, plus have the primary in it as well.
And with very recent rules, you could have one in your backyard without regard to setbacks, so right up to the fence line.
Through the chair to the mayor, yes, the province came out with a new regime around the fact of lot coverage, which essentially allows a significant amount of the entire lot to be covered by additional dwelling unit.
I've got a big front yard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Foster. Are there any further questions from members of council? I don't see any. I am going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? There being none, that's carried. Mr. Clerk, on to 10.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 10.2 is a zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the creation of 187 residential units consisting of 18 single detached dwelling units, 18 semi-detached dwelling units, 11 street-related townhouse units, and 2 medium-density blocks showing 140 townhouse units. A park and stormwater management facility are also proposed, as well as 6 part lots. The 6 part lots are proposed along the southern boundary to be developed following the realignment of Longworth Avenue. The part lots are proposed to be developed into 1 single detached dwelling and 1 townhouse block consisting of 5 units. File number is ZBA 2022-23, and I'm starting with those I have registered, which is Libby Rukansky first.
Okay, I forgot about a very important point, safety. If you want to bring more people on Nash Road, I took today to this meeting Solina Road. You can see left, you can see right. I didn't see any car. And suddenly, it was in front of me. Luckily, I'm driving hybrid, it stopped by itself. I could be in accident and many other people. They're driving so fast, nobody's going slow or according to the speed. Then Maple Grove, it's even worse. With new hardware store and so on, I like shopping there. But I was waiting 15 minutes to get over Highway 2 or from Nash Road to get in. Could you put street lights there at those 2 intersections? And I can even imagine Hancock Road. It's so close to Curtis Road. It's impossible. You can't see either side. And there are bus stops and so on. So something has to be done, especially when Highway 418 wants to put transit station along Hancock Road and Highway 2. So all those people from Marlin Spring will drive through this station? I don't think so. They will use Nash Road, and it will be even more more people. I don't know, the Nash Road will be standstill. So could you please do something about this safety? It's very important. I don't know if not for you. You can go there and drive there. Try to do that. And at different times, it's almost the same. When I go to shop to Bowmanville, I don't want to go shop to Oshawa to support our industry and so on. It's impossible. And, regarding this subdivision from Marlin Spring, they have new contractor now. I wish, you can talk to these people because it's a huge subdivision and no park, no parquet, nothing. they are covering 3 wetlands and 1 huge marsh. And the site is always flooded. And it becomes wetland, you know, like, how do you call that, big birds? They were trying to get there, and the staff were, you know, they were like scaring them off and so on. Those people, poor people, will have so much flooding in their basement and so on because of that clay, you know, that is underneath. It's just horrible. Everybody who is passing this subdivision from our existing, like the subdivisions, say, I wouldn't like to live there. So could you please do something about this traffic? It's very important.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kansky?
No.
I don't see any, but I'll tell you, safety is a priority for this council, and we just did that at Bowmanville Avenue and Nash Road, so I'm sure we will look at that, at least put in street lights there.
If something happens, whose fault it will be? That's
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. And next on my list is Jim Dulatka. Come up, Jim.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me speak a second time. Again, my name is Jim Dulatka, a resident here in Bowmanville on Nash Road. Councillor Wu, thank you for printing off my petition. That's awesome to see that happened here. And you mentioned about other people on Nash having comments to potentially send them in. So I do have some comments from people, and I'd like to read them for you now. So these are people who, on my petition, sent me comments. Crystal Kingston, we do not have enough infrastructure to build this amount of housing. Brian Connolly, we need to ensure Bowmanville has the schools and infrastructure to accommodate the number of people buying homes and moving to our town. We should learn from what happened to Brooklyn 20 years ago and not repeat their mistakes. We have enough issues with kids being bused into Curtis for school or being placed in high schools in grade 7 and 8, and overcrowding within all the schools. Building one school will not solve the schooling issue. Traffic's horrible. Grocery stores cannot keep up with the demand and are always out of stock. Crime has risen. We do not have any recreational programs for kids, lack parks and ample hiking trails in town, and transit is a laughing matter. These all need to be looked at and fixed before adding more people to our amazing town. N. Marshall, Canada as a whole is lagging behind in infrastructure. This is especially true in the GTA's East End. As a community, we need to focus our efforts on providing services for the people whom already live here, while also providing opportunity for builders and developers to develop in less congested and more appropriate areas. Sanjin Zekko, we need accessible, affordable, and sustainable housing options, not more expensive developments like condos. This next one, I want to point out, these are not my words, so I just want to make you completely aware. This is from Cam Brown. Clarington is about to become the next Mississauga, and crime is going to skyrocket, which our mayor doesn't seem to understand. Not my words, I'm just reading them. Debbie St. Croix, I don't want them building any more. That is way too much for this little town, and you are taking everything away from the wildlife. Emma V., the municipality needs to put more importance on our wildlife and green space. Schools and roads are already overcrowded. Fix the problems before moving on to more developments. Grace Murillo, Bowmanville is becoming a dangerous place to live. You're forcing us to move to safer, less populated areas. Jessica McCarthy, I left the city to get away from overpopulation and loved how peaceful and picturesque Bowmanville was. In the 14 years we've been here now, we have seen much growth and are concerned that this once beautiful town will become a bustling concrete jungle like our neighboring cities. Jeff Van Grudel, I have been a resident of Clarington for 28 years, and over that time, my services on Nash Road have gone down while my property taxes have more than tripled. 28 years, still no water, sewers, fire hydrants, street lights, sidewalks on my section of Nash, and garbage services have greatly diminished over the years. Additionally, I question what has happened to all the money generated by the housing and business development in Clarington and the increase in annual property taxes collected by all of this new housing. Surely all the increased tax revenue should provide services to the people who have been supporting the community for decades. On his point about the taxes, in December 2023, the Durham Region Post paper wrote an article about Clarington's tax payers. And in that article, it reported that the budget includes a net tax levy increase of 4.2% on average per year from 2024 to 2027. That increase would result in an additional $67 per year for the Clarington portion of an average household's tax bill. At Clarington's current population, that would be an extra $7 million per year. One of the things I don't know your name, so I'm just going to say he spoke about, was about the traffic studies. Just curious if the traffic studies are going to be redone for current period, and if those traffic studies included Green Road. And I asked about Green Road because the reality is, if people want to go to Canadian Tire, Home Depot, or Walmart, they are going to go west on Nash Road. Longworth, people will also go up Nash Road. So green has to be included in your traffic study. And I think I'm at time, so that'll be it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I see Mayor Foster has a question. Go ahead, Mayor Foster.
Mr. Chair, more of a comment. I don't find it a source of amusement when we hear concerns about crime in Clarington. And certainly we heard from a couple. I am concerned when statements are made, and Jim, I know that those were not your statements. Councillor Wu, with his experience on the Police Services Board, Clarington is an exceptionally safe municipality. And even if we look at our space within Durham Region, the statistics that come out on a regular basis and the work that Durham Region Police do, I think we need to worry about the stories that we hear as opposed to the facts that we live with, and you know, be happy for where we live. And as we get larger, yes, we are going to see greater issues of crime. But DRP is doing a good job as much as they can do. And again, the statistics will bear out how safe the community is.
I personally agree. I personally have not.
So again, I'm not, just a
Yeah.
statement, so I'm not looking for, but it concerns me when statements like that are made. And Mr. Chair, frankly, you chuckling at that does not help, in my opinion.
Councillor Rang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. And just to build on what the mayor said, you know, and this is not in your comments today, but I quite often hear about Toronto people in Clarington. And by that, people do not mean investment bankers. And that language always rankles me as well. So thank you for that, Mayor. Through you, Chair, to Jim, the comment, you know, growth should pay for growth. Are you aware of, again, Bill 23 and changes to development charges, which effectively mean, notwithstanding all kinds of advice that the province has been given, that growth does not in fact pay for growth, and that with some of the challenges that we've received through Bill 23 to development charges, that is really not the case?
No.
Okay. And given some of the information shared with you today at Council, is it your intention to go back to some of your petitioners with what you've heard today?
Sorry, to me?
So, yeah, to you. Yeah, through the chair to you.
So repeat.
So a number of the questions that your petitioners have asked in like the statements that you've made, you've received some answers from both staff and from Council, and have been sort of surfaced through your questions. So my question is your intention to go back to the folks who wrote into you to say, hey, here's what I've heard?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm going to see what the outcome of this meeting is going to be, what my options are next. and what the council's decision are. I will probably post what happened to date, just to say what happened on the Facebook community page, so people are updated on my progress. But other than that, I'm not sure what other options I have.
Okay, so I would just, I guess, and again, you're aware that folks can write to their local councillor, and they can write to staff and ask these questions directly rather than asking them on Facebook where they're not seen by, officials. I know everybody thinks that when they write something on Facebook, it's public knowledge and everybody knows about it, but I hope that that folks who have spoken to you know that they can also ask us directly and we can respond directly to them, so.
Yeah, many of the people felt this isn't the forum that they would like to come and speak at. That's why they sent me the comments.
No, I understand that. Again, I would just say that if folks want their comments to be heard, speaking to their councillors or speaking to staff directly are the way to ensure that those comments are heard, and putting them on Facebook is a nice exercise in free speech, I suppose, to a certain extent. Not going to comment on Meta here, but I would encourage folks to write to their councillor and to write to staff if they have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wu?
And through the chair, and again, thank you very much, Jim. I'm looking at your change orders. It was Holt that proposed development at Nash Road and Mobile Avenue specifically, right? That's
for both of them.
Yes. And when you look at, and I think you said you had, was it 100 some odd comments?
Just under 100.
Okay. But what isn't shown, in fact, I recognize some names. They do not live in that area, that proximity. But they're offering comments, and I think they're offering comments just in general too about development that's going on in Clarington. So I'm interested to know how many within, the radius are commenting on this, on your petition. You wouldn't know that, would you? Because they don't tell you where they live.
I didn't print out the comment list with the locations, but if I remember looking when I was copying them, I would say 90% of them were from Clarington area, so Curtis, Bowmanville area.
Okay. So they're offering comments. And again, a lot of those comments are specific to probably development in general within Clarington. I think part and parcel, you moved from Whitby to Nash Road.
Correct.
With the idea that the small town.
Correct. And
as you've seen in your 2 years here and some of the other ones that have been here, and this growth is happening. And can we jump in front of it? And as one of the previous, growth's inevitable, but how we grow and develop, again, that's something that we can look at. Right now, we're looking at this, and I'll be interested as the comments, and please have the comments come. Like, if you can reach out, whether they phone or send emails to our planning department, they will be included as part and parcel of the public consultation.
Awesome. I will reach out to the people and let them know as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further comments from councils? I will make a couple comments. I wasn't chuckling about, I was chuckling about Facebook, that how we rely on Facebook. We live in one of the safest communities in Durham region, maybe the safest, and I'm sure you're aware of that. But you go on Facebook and it's like crime is rampant. It's not. So that's really to that why I was chuckling. Second point is the growth. You alluded to one of the comments you made from one of the residents about more folks coming here. So when that happens, it's more roads, it's more policing, it's more amenities, it's more firefighters. So that's what the extra growth pays for. It's not extra money that we're overflowing with cash to do other things. It's not enough. So I just want to make that clear. But so it's common, you see that on Facebook, that with all these folks coming, we should, no, it doesn't, because we have to provide all those additional services. So I just want to make that clear.
Yep, understood.
And thank you so much for your presentation. And yes, it's relatively safe. We would rather a community where there's no crime, but it doesn't happen. But we're doing our best to keep it as low as possible and keep you as safe as the community as safe as possible. So thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this application? Again, please come to the podium, state your name, and then fill out the form once you're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Thorsten Kosek, and I'd like to speak on this because this is a great example of looking at things small picture. So we got to look at it. Bowmanville Avenue is going to be 2 lanes, essentially from the 401 all the way at least up to the 407 in the near future. That's the plan. So what is that going to look like? Are we going to have more streets going onto 57, which now slows down traffic? Now you have another Liberty Street. Is it going to be another green road, as the gentleman said before? What's the plan? So therefore, when you do some development plan, are you exiting on 57 or Longworth? So do you limit the number of accessible roads or don't you? You have a little park, everyone's clapping. I see that as a big mistake. And you're looking, what? A park, a big mistake? Absolutely. Who's going to access that park? Take a look at the park on Mearns and Highway 2. Anyone that has kids that played soccer, there's no parking. No one can use the park. Then the residents get all upset because there's no parking. Now you have 6, 7 meters from 10. Great questions, by the way, great concerns. Cars are getting bigger, not smaller. Electric cars are actually bigger. They're actually wider and they're actually longer. Statistically speaking, you need more room, not less. What's the solution? Quite easy. Go up, go down. You can keep some subdivisions still the same. What I look at from transportation as we get more from the safety concern, for schools, where are the bike paths? How come no one's talking about bicycle paths? What about e-bikes? You see the danger of e-bikes in town. Are they on the road? Are they on the sidewalk? Where do they go? Some are heavy. Some are 800, 900 pounds with a 200-person pound on there. Someone gets hit on the sidewalk. That's huge. The e-scooters that you see being supported by public transit and our councillors. You see more in Oshawa and around. I've used them, but Uber, Lime. They're great. Very unregulated. Are we going to have designated areas for those? We know it's coming. We know electric vehicles are coming. Do we have the infrastructure? Where's the traffic study for planning on this? We know when we made mistakes. Highway 57 exit. Has anyone used that lately? Who lives here? Who takes that exit when Ontario Hydro gets out from work? They're backed up on the 401. Now you're going to add more residents? Where's the plan of fixing that as part of the development? Where's the bigger picture? Right? We have Jackman Road, Valley 2000, fantastic group of work that was done there, right? It takes, let's call it the creek, it takes a wildlife, it has a path, it keeps people on the path. You go further up from Highway 2 up to Jackman Road, you still have informal paths. The plan is to develop that with the pathway all the way up to Longworth. How do people access that? Where's the parking for that? How about the people living there you're going to put there? How do they have access to that? These are the questions that should be part of the development. That should be part of what we're looking at. That's real world. Where are the stores? Where are the restaurants? Take a look what parking happens when you don't plan. Aspen Springs on Highway 57. I'll stick with it because it's here. Stone's Throw. Great little mall. You put up that little 4-story building, 5-story building there. Look what happens. You can't even park there anymore. Anyone that goes there for dinner, you can't even park there anymore. You're going to be parking on the street in Aspen Springs. Happens on Mearns with Frosty John's. Same thing. If I was a resident there, I'd be frustrated. Because improper planning. That's improper planning. So please, we have an opportunity to do this right. Engage the councillors, engage the people, listen to us, challenge the developers, challenge the planners to look at the bigger picture, look at the future. Where's the infrastructure for the electric vehicles? Okay, anyone talking about that? No one. Not once. So when you park on the street, how do you charge your car? When we have multiple dwellings? No answers. The cars are actually bigger. So please, I implore you, that's a great example of what we should be doing. Take a picture of what you want the 57 to look like all the way to 407. Look at the bigger picture. Appreciate that. Questions?
Are there any questions from members of council?
Thank you.
I don't see any. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anybody else would like to speak to this application? Going once? Okay, seeing none, we move on to Mark Jacobs from the Big Leary Group.
Hi, good evening. As you know, I'm Mark Jacobs. I'm associated with Big Leary Group. I will try to keep my comments on this presentation brief, as many of the comments on the previous presentation certainly apply to this site. The site in question is 2547 Bowmanville Avenue. It's on the east side of Bowmanville Avenue, on the north side of Longworth, and directly east of the application I was speaking to before. Many of the same things apply. There are commercial lands to the east at Longworth and Scugog, as well as along Highway 2. And there are, the lands are currently an agricultural use, but they are slated for future development. Bowmanville Creek does run immediately adjacent to this property on the north and the east. And this property in itself is just under 7 hectares in size, with 390 meters of frontage on Bowmanville Avenue and 247 meters on Longworth. The subject site is currently in an area that is currently agricultural, as well as some estate residential. As mentioned previously, this site is agricultural and surrounded by agricultural uses, and Bowmanville Creek Valley along the east and north side. These lands are designated community areas in the Durham OP, urban residential, and the Clarington official plan. They are also within the Brookhill Neighborhood Secondary Plan, which, as mentioned, was adopted by Council in 2021 and approved by the region in 2024. We do understand there are those appeals, and staff have said it's premature at the time, but we are willing to work with staff, and we are not asking for a recommendation now, and we certainly would waiting on any future decisions from the Ontario Land Tribunal in terms of those appeals. As it pertains to the subject site, many of the designations from the west side apply to the east side. There is medium density local corridor along Bowmanville Avenue, medium density residential along Longworth. The central part of the site is low density residential. There's a parquet on the east side. There's a stormwater management facility at the southeast corner. And there's also a trail identified in the secondary plan that runs along the north and the east side of the subject site. I'm not going to get into all the designations this time, as I did speak to them on the previous presentation, but medium density local corridor, medium density residential, low density residential, and a parquet, all the same policies apply to the subject site. In terms of the stormwater management facility, its design is to be located through the development. The design is to be sized and located through the development application process, and then all determined through a functional surfacing report. In terms of the actual proposed development, many of the same type of units are being proposed on this side as the ones on the west side of Bowmanville Avenue. There are single detached dwellings with lot widths of 9.15 meters, semi-detached units with unit widths of 7.65 meters, or the block is 15.3 meters. There are 6-meter wide street townhouses, as well as 3-story stacked townhouses. The stormwater management facility is provided at the southeast corner. We are proposing an underground storage tank for the stormwater management facility. That tank is also being designed to accommodate drainage, not just from the subject site, but also stormwater drainage from the other application on the west side of Bowmanville Avenue. In this proposal is also showing a number of local roads with connections to Bowmanville Avenue and Longworth Avenue. Street A aligns with the Street A on the other lands to the west. And Longworth Avenue, the intersection at Longworth Avenue has been carefully considered in terms of the spacing with Bowmanville Avenue. As well, Longworth Avenue is being proposed to be extended west, but also realigned further to the south to the neighboring land. So that design of Longworth Avenue has been put forward through our consultants and in discussions with Clarington and Durham Region staff on the appropriate alignment and design, as well as the intersection spacing with Street A. And as mentioned, there, like the other side, we are proposing a park on the east side of the site. The current design of the park, there's a facility fit plan that has been submitted, but the ultimate design of the park in terms of the programming, as well as any parking requirements, will be subject to further review with municipal staff. There's also, opportunities for parking along on the street, on Street A, all along the east side of the road. In addition to the park space that's there, as mentioned, the stormwater management facility is proposed to be in an underground tank, and that allows for some passive recreational uses above the stormwater management facility that can actually tie into the park to the north. And also in terms of the trail system, there's a trail proposed within the environmental protection area that we are proposing on the site. And that trail runs from north to south all along the east side in accordance with the Brookhill Neighborhood Secondary Plan. These are the same images that were shown on the previous presentation in terms of the semi-detached dwellings and the single-detached dwellings. The owners' tribute communities are looking, putting models that they have. They have plenty of models, and they're looking at different options for these sites, but these are just some potential building models for this site. As far as the medium-density local corridor blocks, stacked townhouses are being proposed and with each unit being accessed from a private road, with visitor parking being provided on both of the medium-density local corridor blocks. Further designs of these blocks will be provided when these applications go forward for site plan approval. Like the other site, we are proposing a number of different zones that speak to the proposed building types and the lot sizes with site-specific regulations that were submitted to staff. And like the other application, numerous studies were prepared and submitted in support of the proposed development. And that concludes this presentation. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Councillor Rang. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a lengthy list of questions. First question being to you, Mark, parkland dedication. So the parkland dedication between both this proposal and the proposal prior to this, is that parkland dedication in keeping with Bill 23, or is that does that adhere to parkland dedication size prior to Bill 23?
Through the chair, when these applications were submitted was prior to Bill 23. But in terms of parkland dedication requirements, there is 5% of the land for low density, and in terms of the more medium or higher density, there's the alternative rate. So those, in terms of providing the requirement, I believe we're approximately around the same size. I'd have to double check the numbers to confirm that.
So this exceeds the requirement that would have been under Bill 23, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you for that. And please take that back. That is welcome news. And I don't know if folks know this around the room, but that is that is a good thing. Okay, so I have a number of specific questions, and thank you, Mark, for your patience in advance. So, Chair, through you to Mark, what's the sewer depth on the development in this area? Do you know that offhand?
Through the chair, no, I don't have the actual sewer depth, but the sewers will need to be brought up to the site.
Okay.
Sanitary, if that's what you're referring to.
So then, through you, Chair, follow-up question to Deputy CAO. Do we know approximately how deep the sewers will have to run in the area under the current plan?
So through the chair, I'd ask Nicole Zambray if she could answer this, please.
To Councillor Ring, through the chair, I don't have the details of that. I'd have to, I don't know if Karen's available online to go over some of the servicing details, but
okay.
I
So
don't have them offhand.
So thank you. I then follow-up question through the chair to staff. Are there wells, dug wells in the area that we know of, like in to the immediate south or west or north of there?
So through the chair, that is something that we'd have to look into. I do not have that off the top.
Okay. So then again, through you, Chair to staff, I'm just wondering if a well study, I note hydrogeological impact study on slide 15. I'm just curious if, and I apologize for not knowing the nomenclature, does that mean well study or is that something different?
Through the chair, it would depend on the content of the hydrogeological study. I would ask the applicant if it actually included a well study as part of that study when it was submitted. But often when an application is submitted, they'd have the hydrogeological just looking at water table, trying to figure out impacts. But there would often be either an addendum within it that would have a well study component, or it would be a separate study altogether saying, here's the surrounding water well situation.
Through the chair, I'd have to double check on the details of the hydrogeological study, but we are aware that, you know, to the south of the site, south of Longworth, there are some lots that are on private wells.
Okay.
So I would expect the well study to be been conducted in that hydrogeological. I'd have to go back though.
Okay, through the chair, thanks for that. I know that that's a concern of some residents in the area. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing what that would entail. And then through the chair, again through Mark. Or to Mark rather. So this is, you know, a mix of medium and single family detached homes, and there's no plan to come back with an updated request for higher density or anything like that, is there?
Through the chair, we've received comments and we are, looking at those comments and, we'll have further discussions with staff.
Okay. Again, because we've had, just to some of the discussion around here, we've had other folks come back later with an updated request for higher density, and this is in line with the secondary plan, and I'm encouraged by that. Then through the chair to you, Mark, on the question of parking, given that we have, we've already talked about the need for perhaps an updated traffic study, but I'm just wondering, given the mix of development, are we certain that we have enough parking in the area here for this development?
Through the chair, we are designing the lots, all the single detached and semi-detached in the street townhouses, all those freehold lots to provide all the required on-site parking for each lot. And this site is also has an on-street parking plan to account for visitor parking as well. Okay. And that has been submitted to staff.
Okay. And again, I would refer back to the request for a comprehensive parking study that was referred to staff a while back. So I'm looking forward to the results of that. And then, Chair, through you to staff, a couple of questions about amenities. So first of all, the parkette that we see on the plan here, wondering if you could speak to, first of all, I guess the approximate size of that and what sort of park amenities might be. I mean, are we looking at a soccer field here, or what are we looking at exactly?
So through the chair, I will start off and then I'm going to send it over to Nicole for additional pieces. But I do want to answer your earlier question about the sewer depth in this area. So I just heard back from Karen Richardson that the typical depths are in this area about 3 to 4 meters. The Bowmanville Avenue main trunk is actually about 5 meters within this area. Moving over to the parkette, so it is one of the smaller size of parks that are identified within the secondary plan. As I've mentioned, the secondary plan is still under appeal, but it is one of our smaller areas. The facility fit that was provided by the proponent, it includes, and it is proposing, staff are still reviewing, but it would include a play pod, shade structure, as well as walking trails within it. It's not a large park.
So this is not a park you need to park at?
No, this is typically an interior type of park that you would not generally have parking. It's really to provide service to the existing surrounding residents. The secondary plan has 2 neighborhood parks that are further west, which would then, when we do the fit, subject to sport fields or other programming that goes into it, we would have parking with that.
Right, so it's a parkette, not really, and it's more for the neighborhood than for, people wouldn't go to, it's not a destination park. You're not going to drop your kids off there or anything like that, okay.
Correct, there are trails that will connect it around the entire secondary plan as well, though.
Funny you should mention the trails. So through you, Chair, again, a follow-up question on the trail system there. So I note on slide 6 that we have a dotted line for a trail there. Could you speak to that? Is that a trail is that a multi-use path? Will that connect down to the existing multi-use path that's scheduled to go along? And where is the terminus to the north? Are we talking about a circle of green, or does it end somewhere? Or wonder if you could speak to that a bit.
So through the chair, it actually is part of a trail network that is interconnected throughout the entire secondary plan. So it actually stretches up and straddles along the natural heritage and follows northwesterly up to the pretty well the northerly tip of that secondary plan area, cuts across, and then comes down the next finger of the natural heritage system within that area. So it actually creates almost a circular action around the entire secondary plan. So it will be quite robust.
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for that, because I love to hear about the circle of green. I never get tired of it. The question around parking then would be, is there a need for parking along that trail, or is that strictly like a pedestrian cycling path that has access points through neighborhoods and that sort of thing?
So through the chair, it actually interconnects with those 2 neighborhood parks that I was talking about as well. So as the programming comes forward with that, with budget, et cetera, we'll be looking at parking. So there will be options for parking in order to allow people to access this trail, as well as for existing residents within the community to directly access it.
But as I understand it, again, the primary purpose of that multi-use path, and as similar to the Bowmanville Trail Path, similar to the path that goes through through Jurylands and behind Mearns, it's intended to be cycling and pedestrian pathway, and it's not intended to be a drive-up destination. There is spaces for parking, but it's not intended to be used that way. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from members of council? I don't see one. Mark, this is maybe to you and to staff as well. And this is following on to what Councillor Rang was alluding to. So speaking to folks, folks would prefer big wholesome park with more amenities versus parkettes. Is that something we look at instead of having all these small parkettes and just have it one big large park with a lot more amenities? I think a lot of municipalities moving in that direction as well. Is it something we would look at?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I think in light of that, so council just passed the Parks and Recreational strategy. And in that, it outlines a future strategy to get over 105 hectares of parkland. It identifies a variety of sizes, speaks also to a significantly large park of trying to acquire of 30 hectares. Through land use planning and the secondary plan that I keep referring to, it's built on the policies of the official plan. And what we're trying to achieve is a variety of park sizes that can provide a variety of facility use and access for recreating. So really what you'll see through the framework, and Clarington currently has it already, is a mix and range. You have small parkettes where people can recreate, walk around, see smaller pieces. You have larger parks that have larger sports facilities and elements and recreational facilities. A lot of municipalities are looking at continuing that framework of having both large, medium, and small park spaces in order to accommodate and provide a variety of things. Because in many cases, if you go for just the single large park, it requires either direct access for transit to get people out to it, because it's usually not as closely connected to all of the residential and other mixed uses, which is why you want to have smaller and medium-sized parks close to those residential areas where they can just come down out of a condominium, walk out of their front porch, walk across the street, or be directly in close connection to that nice green space.
Okay, I guess that answers my question. Nothing further from anyone, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that concludes the statutory public meeting for ZBA 2022-23. If anyone has additional questions or your question has not been answered, please contact the planner on the file, Nicole Zambri, Senior Planner at nzambri@clarington.net. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and back to you for the report.
Thank you. So it's report PDS-004-25. I need a mover for that. Councillor Trail, second. Councillor Rang. Questions or comments from members of council? Mayor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things, so more comments, not questions. On this, Mr. Chair, thank you for your clarification on Facebook versus concerns or lack of concern around criminal activity. Tonight there has been a lot, we have all highlighted challenges with the province, and as much as you don't want to blame the province for everything, the province, the regulations that they are putting in place are to try to make houses affordable or more attainable. They've done a variety of things, but I think we're hearing tonight two fairly small applications in the grand scheme of things. These are not big applications at all, and yet, I hope the frustration from council and more broadly from other councils is being heard, and I would encourage for the limited members of public here tonight. I don't know how much the public understands. And Mr. Lyons, correct me if I'm wrong, but a radical departure from planning vision and practices in the past that we are dealing with. And I would suggest a radical departure from we heard a vision of our community, the vision that would have existed 10 years ago, versus what I'll suggest is being imposed on us today. So there's a challenge, and I think there's discussion and dialogue. So to staff, I thank you for your best efforts at that. Certainly some questions and concerns on this. Yes, thank you. And again, I'll keep my speechifying as, despite Councillor Rang loving it when I speechify, because that's what I heard. He wishes that I did more of it and on a regular basis, but we'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Mayor Foster. Councillor Swart, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I was interested to see that the stormwater management pond was actually a tank, and on top of the tank then was going to be passive recreation, Mr. Jacobs. I think I heard Mr. Jacobs say. So is that another kind of form of parkland?
Is that for you, Ms. Zambri? Go ahead, please.
So I'll start off, and then Nicole can add to it if needed as well. So this is a specific area that we're looking at very carefully. The municipality generally does not take underground stormwater management ponds. There are challenges in the long term operating the maintenance, but these are things that we're trying to explore. There are other municipalities that are moving down this path of supporting them in the correct areas. So it's something that we're looking at. We're trying to figure it out. The challenges about calling it recreation on top of it is the fact that at some point in the future, the membrane would have to be replaced on it, which means that in order to do that, it's going to be taken away from recreational space for upwards of 2 years. So there are operational realities that we need to look at. So it's something that is used more often within more high density type developments in more downtown Toronto and other areas, but it's something that we're seeing coming more and more. So staff are having conversations with the development sector, trying to understand a little more, and we're also consulting with other municipalities that are exploring this approach as well.
Great, thank you.
That's it for you, Councillor Swart? I guess she's gone. Okay. Are there anything further? So this is Mr. Lyons. We do have what control we do have that the province, we do have some control over site plan, correct? So that's where we probably have the most control. So maybe would you want to elaborate on that for the folks that are here? Thank you.
So through the chair, I would suggest there are multiple stop gates in looking at these types of applications. So the first, of course, we have zoning bylaw as well as a draft plan of subdivision. So through that, we would work through that framework, try and figure out what's appropriate, bring forward a recommendation report to our council, and council would issue a decision on that. And then, of course, whether it comes into effect or gets appealed, those are all elements we would navigate. At a later point, we would look through site plan and we would have some approval authority over that. But building on what the mayor had indicated just earlier is that the province has dramatically changed the planning system. And quite frankly, it's changed more dramatically in the last 2 to 4 years than I've seen in my almost 25 years career. So in light of that, we are finding a lot more things are going to litigation, and it's elements that we will have to work on. But in this situation, I would argue we have a very good working relationship with Tribute, and we're continuing to work through matters, and I fully anticipate that we'll have a good recommendation report addressing all of these matters. And we've heard a lot of elements tonight that staff will be looking at through their review and process of the application.
Thank you very much for that, and I don't see anything further. So I am going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? There being none, that's carried. And we have one final item. There are no confidential reports. So one final motion. Moved by Councillor Rank to adjourn. Seconder, Mayor Foster. Questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? There being none, that's carried. Thank you very much.